Aloha kako. Thank you for what I hope you're eating now or you're gonna eat later. But in any case, thank you for spending your early evening with us. Why don't we begin? My name is Taupori Tangaro, and this program, the Mōkaulele Indigenous Arts Program, is brought to you by, I sound like I'm broadcasting, is brought to you or provided to you by the Mōkaulele office at, it's out of the Kipuka. Some of you may know the Kipuka Center, UHH Hilo. And it's also in partnership with Hawaiʻi Community College. Now, Mōkaulele, the program gives an opportunity for indigenous artisans, Hawaiian indigenous artisans, and maybe in the near future we'll open it up to our cousins in the Pacific and other spaces. But we know, we don't suspect, we know that when we engage in what the world calls art, a particular part of our body responds, a particular part of our brain, a particular part of our na'au. And when we remove art from community, that community goes downhill. So art plays a very, very important piece in the character of the community, the family, and the individuals that populate that that family. And we use, the University of Hawaii is committed, strategically committed to becoming an indigenous leader in an indigenous service institution. We, the university, see ourselves as learning how it is to indigenize, not just study indigenous people, but how to indigenize the university, the culture of the university. Part of that is creating leaders within the university system that are of Native Hawaiian ancestry or other indigenous ancestries, or people that are have heritage. You know, they have a heritage experience. No, we're getting away from the idea that we're just hiring people for their degrees that they've achieved and the years that they've worked in the university. But now we're inquiring into who you are and who have you worked with successfully. That we have a particular branch of, we have a particular kind of community that we serve. We want to make sure that you're a good fit for this community. So we use arts to help us grow this. And so without any further ado, again, my name is Taupori Tangaro, and we're going to try and answer your chats. You can chat. We're going to try and answer your chat. We only have 1 hour. You know, and if your chat seems to be going on like the length of the Kumulāʻau, then maybe you should just email him. And his email will be provided in the chat for you. But again, welcome, and may I introduce Kumulāʻau Singh.
Aloha mai kākou, mai ka moko ke awea hiki, ni hau ka helelani, aloha mai kākou pelina. Mahalo ya oe Taupori for this opportunity, the University of Hawaii Hilo, and also for Hawaii Community College for this opportunity for sharing Mōkaulele. So this afternoon, we're going to be sharing about Ku and Hina and these two very powerful male-female elemental energy forces that helps me and actually helps everyone really in all the things that we do. You know, Auntie Lucia Rosario Tarayo had a good write-up about Ku the other day on Facebook, and she kind of shared that how Ku is really really a driving force. You know, when we think about Ku, we think about war, we think about very masculine, very strong and powerful. And when we think about Hina, she's just equally as powerful, except she's the female counterpart of Ku. And she is always present in all the type of work that we do. So, you know, I'm just gonna share, I am a mixed medium artist. I'm not just an EA weaver. Originally I started out as an EA weaver, but you know, as Taupori has shared, you know, sometimes when you're so deep into the art, you know, eventually you have to change it up a little bit and change the medium. So I've actually evolved from EA to La'au to Eevee. And I kind of just sort of float around between those three different mediums all the time. And then, as we had shared, that this is an open discussion. So if any of you have any questions, please feel free. I'm just so grateful we have the opportunity to do it virtually versus rather in person. I would love to be there in person to share, but this is the next best thing that we can do at this moment. So, you know, my first real diving into Hana no Ea Hawaii really was when I was on Hawaii Island when I met Kaupuri the first time back in 1990, the 96, 97 school year when I was at Navahio Colonial School. And really the first Hana that I ever did was make a lehulu. Now, it's not very masculine to make a lehulu. And, you know, granted, this is a very full, extra full lehulu because I'm not a hulu person, but, you know, I was challenged by my wahine, Haunani, to, we weren't married at the time. She said, you know, I have to make this. Whoever marries me is going to make my lehulu. And she only had like that much. So, and I finished it. But I finished it like maybe 4 times over that school year. I brought it back to Honolulu and she would cut off like 3/4 of it. Said not good enough. And I would do it again and again and again. And finally, by the 4th time, I just finished it, put the ribbon on. I said, okay, we'll pow. But, you know, this taught me, this is very hina in the type of work that you do. Taught me a lot of patience about just having a lot of patience, you know, especially if you didn't have a real kumu to go with. You know, your kumu is your kupuna, your ancestors. Someone in your genealogy did feather work. And, you know, when we call upon them, you know, they're always present there to lend a hand. And, you know, thankfully I listened and I was able to finish that in my first year when I was working at Navahi and came back to Honolulu. And it wasn't until I was at Kamehameha Schools that I was teaching Hawaiian culture that I got into Ie. And that was primarily because I had shown a video to our students at 9th grade on different master practitioners. And Patrick Horimoto was one of the, he was one of the featured master artisans on that video, and he did Ie. And so Ie was really the thing I got into because it was very unusual. Not many people were doing it. And then I was very fortunate enough to come across my mentor who actually worked with Patrick, and that was Raymond Nakama. And, you know, learning from 2 non-Hawaiians and following a good precedent set by Papa Mau as well, who taught all our new navigators here in Hawaii. They all have a genealogy connecting back to Papa Mau. And Papa Mau, of course, wasn't Hawaiian, but if Ike comes from a good source, from a good place, I always say, you know, it's worth listening to, it's worth learning from it, because you can never tell where the knowledge comes from. That person could be giving back to our lahui. And because of those people, in my practice or in our practice, when we teach people, we don't discriminate who we teach, because you can never tell who might be so inspired that they're going to give back to our lahui one day. And so right now we do have a papa Ulana'i on the island of Maui. We have Ava Haumana, and not all of them are Kanaka Hawaii, but all of them do have aloha to our Kanaka Hawaii, to our lahui. And they're all gonna, in some form, give back to our lahui one day. So we just recently finished an exhibition last year called Na'akua Ke, or the Vast Many Deities. And it was on exhibition at the Bailey House at the Haleho Ike Ike in Wailuku, in which we share with our haumana how to create the ki'iakua. And, you know, this ki'iakua is made of ie. Not only is it made with ie, it also has pa, like mother of pearl, has la'au for the maka, and the nihos, we're using niho ilio, or better yet, coyote teeth. It's the closest thing to canines that you can get. If you don't know where to get them, look eBay. You can get them on eBay, okay? So we taught our haumana how to make our ki'iakua, because, you know, that cohort really was about the basic fundamentals of learning basketry. So we started off with basketry. We went into fish traps, and many of the fish traps, you know, we have Mōkaulele that's tied to Kalamainu'u, who's a wahine mo'o. She is a patron akua wahine for wahine who fish. And so they learn how to make the opai trap, the hinalea trap, as well as the opu trap. And then after that, to combine all of their ike that they learned from fish traps and hina'i to make the ki'iakua. Now, traditionally, these were akua hulu manu. They were covered with hulu, with the feathers. But because our papa is really focused on ulanaʻie, we left them unfeathered, and they're just as beautiful to look at without, without feathering them. Otherwise, if you feather them, you could really use any kind of material, and then it wouldn't be the same. But we wanted to teach them how to do this because in traditional times, the kiʻakua was a symbol of the ali'i and his people. And when they went into kaua, when they went to battle, the kahu would carry this on a kawila pole and hoist it up high above the army, the walikoa. And the idea was intended to uplift the people, to give them strength, give them courage, and to strike fear in their opponents. And although, when we make the kiʻakua today, it doesn't have that same kind of religious significance. The mana is still there because the ike came from our kupuna, came from a source. And then, of course, we hana mekalima, we do it with our hands. So the mana is there in our pieces that we've created. However, like our kiʻakua of old, it was intended to uplift our lahui today. Because never has there been a time when, we need uplifting in our lahui, especially with all the bad news and the things going on with the rest of the honua, with COVID. But even last year, there were so many different challenges when it comes to social injustices for us as Native Hawaiians, with the malama mauna kea, so on and so on. We thought that the kiʻakua might be a good time to introduce it to our lahui so that we could show our lahui that we can continue to practice these arts, that these images have mana, that they can serve a different purpose, a different calling, but yet at the same time, uplift our people. And so when we had our exhibition, Kua Kea, it was one of those open exhibitions that if anybody needs to take them out and they have to go holo holo, the ki'i's gotta go holo holo, it's totally fine with us. So we've had a ki'i go to Mauna Kea. One of our hamana took his ki'i to Mauna Kea to go visit the kupuna over there. And we've also marched in several parades with our ki'iakua. So it was so nice to do unity marches with our po'e Hawaiʻi and carry these ki'i. And to just really to inspire our people, because that's what art is all about. It's about, I know it inspires me as a culture bearer, as a artist, practitioner. And that's one of the reasons why I do a lot of the things that I do, because I'm so inspired about it. By art. But we talk about the art of healing. Well, in reality, art is healing. And I hate to use the word art because art is borrowed from the Western world. Our kupuna made these things out of necessity, and everything had a purpose. It wasn't just for enjoyment and for the looks and appreciating the aesthetics of it. Today, we can look at it in that respect because, when we look at the works that are done by kupuna and with the research that they had and how they did it, it's just amazing of the things that they were able to produce. So we can say the aesthetics, that's some of the things that when I do recreations of their work, I really look to their work as my kumu, really, to try to aspire to replicate and do exactly as the kupuna did. And when I do these things, like in my time, I've made 7 of these. Some are in personal collections and, stuff like that. But, I'm not done yet. And, Mōkaulele, get ready because we're going to come to your island. We're going to have them pop up on your island, 1-year class, just like we did for Maui. We're going to do everything from hina'i to the hina'i'a and to the ki'iakua, because we really would love to get more of these into the hands of our lahui. I'i has taught me a lot, because it's not just something that you can just learn from the book. And although the book was my first source, Arts and Crafts of Hawaii, I have to mahalo Sir Peter Buck, Te Rangi Hiroa, for his ike, for sharing a lot of those things. But then after that, finding my mentor, Raymond Nakama, and him fine-tuning my weaving and other things, not just ulanaʻie, but on other kinds of mediums, he was really a blessing to me to open my eyes that there's much more than just ulanaʻie. And, one of the other things that when I was dabbling into I'eʻe, really getting involved in it, was really wanting to make the mahiole. And a mahiole is a helmet. I have a mahiole here. And this is the mahiole poheo, or a poheo or the knobbed helmet. Some people like refer to calling this the mushroom helmet. And really it was the mahiole that was used by the Ilamuku, who were the marshals of the kingdom. Sometimes they were also known as the mo'i, or the ali'inui's executive officer, if you will. And he was the one that sort of like gave the go-ahead to the aihamu, or the executioner, to inflict pain for our couple breakers in traditional times. Today, some people like to call this as the nakua type of helmet. Now, to me, the mahiole, just like our kiakua, although it has a place traditionally, it has a place historically with our kupuna. It was used by the kane of ali'i rank, and not all ali'i kane wore them. You have to be a very prominent ali'i to even have a mahiole in your possession to wear. So, and there are different kinds of mahioles and artifacts that we can see around the world today, including some at Bishop Museum. But, today the mahiole also has to take a different kind of importance in our society as Hawaiians today. It cannot just be for pageantry. It cannot just be for reenactments. It has to be a living thing. Everything that we produce with our hands are really living things. They have a spirit, because the way I look at it, you take something raw that came from papahana moku, whether it was wood or bone from an animal, things like that. It has mana already in it. And to you put your mana and to take the existing mana and repurpose it and create something new, you're really creating a very mana-for, a powerful item in your possession. Whether you're going to gift it to someone, whether you're going to keep it, whether you're going to malama. And so, like the mahiole, to me, the mahiole has to change. It has to be not just a symbol that we see on Aloha Festivals parade, or Aloha, Aloha Week parade, Kamehameha Day parade. You can't just see the mahiole to be that. It has to take on a new meaning. And, back in 2015, thanks to Andre Perez, he reached out to me and said, hey, would I mind weaving a mahiole for Kaho'okahi Kanuha? And at first I thought about it, and I said, Kaho'okahi is a perfect person who would be a good person to receive a mahiole. And, because after learning and listening and watching Kaho'okahi, he's a very ha'a person. He speaks very well and eloquent. He's a good representative of us at Mauna Kea when he's interacting with other government agencies. And, he's well liked and respected by our people. So, it made sense for him to have a mahiole. So I'm just going to quickly screenshot this. And, at the time, it was just so lucky that I finished his mahiole, and Kaho'okahi was on Oahu at the time at Punana Manoa. And that was his mahiole there. Needless to say, he was very surprised and he was very happy, because I don't think he saw it coming. But the thing for me, and I share this with our haumana who are making mahiole as we speak now, that we want to make them all different. We don't want to keep making the same kinds of mahioles, which means that we can even evolve the art in the use of colors that our kupuna didn't have back in traditional times, but we can still weave a mahiole and use modern colors and modern dyes today to also express ourselves as artists, as practitioners. So, really the possibilities as far as making different design mahiole are endless. And it's my goal, it is one of my goals, and hopefully our haumana will support us as we teach more people how to produce mahiole, that, our lahui needs mahiole. I would love to have a mahiole in every household, so that when we hear the call, when the call is needed, and we need to all come together as a lahui, whether it's at the mauna or wherever it may be, we put on the mahiole, not because it's going to protect us. It's not made of Kevlar or anything like that. It won't stop bullets. But again, it is a symbol of our people as warriors today, as our people were a peaceful warring Ohana people back in Wakahiko times. You know, a lot of people get the misconception that, oh yeah, Hawaiians are so loving, full of aloha, but hey, many people forget that, you know, we are also a warring kind of people as well too. And so during times of war, when we need to stand together and come together, you know, the mahiole is a good symbol. So, you know, ultimately I would like to reinstitute the practice of using mahiole more in events when we come together as a lahui. And like I said, it's not intended to separate our people. It's really meant to bring our people together, and that's why we need to get more mahiole into the hands of our people. So I'm gonna stop sharing this. And so even mahioles like this would be suitable for our people to wear on the mauna. I think I've seen one other person was wearing a mahiole up on the mauna, and I think it was a mahiole poheo like this. And then of course I have a mahiole haka. This is a feathered mahiole haka. Yeah. It was feathered by Rick San Nicholas of California. And you know, it's just so nice to have a feathered helmet in my possession, because, you know, holding one in the museum is not the same as actually wearing one. So, you know, just mahalo. And so I have that. So when we talk about ie, you know, the inspiration part comes from ku. Ku inspires, you know, and also sometimes as far as the manipulation of the rootlets, when you get some real fat rootlets, you know, you really need the ku in there, because your hands really get, it's not like weaving hala. Hala is very, very soft and pliable. Ie is much more, it's a much more harder, firmer material to work with. So it means that you're going to be using more of your finger strength. And many times when people actually do ie weaving, after a while, you know, they also notice that they have to rest their hands, because it's a lot of manipulation and holding. Because if you slap, you know, if you loosen up your grip on your hold on your weaving, it's going to make everything else come alu a little bit. It comes loose. So you have to be very firm and hold it firmly. But, you know, also hina comes into play, because sometimes when you're doing like add-ins, you have to know how much tension you really can pull. Sometimes, you know, we always hear that you're weaving, all of a sudden, pah, and everybody hears that, pah, you know, that sound, and you say, oh, you know, you got a hemel, or you got a fix, got a whole pono. So, you know, that's where hina comes into play, knowing just how much give the ie can give you before you're on the verge of breaking, but yet it's pa'a. Yeah? And so, you know, I've done ie for about 23 years now. But anyway, it's you know, I'm always learning something new, no matter even at this point in my life and work when I do ie. I'm always open for experimentation, trying new things, and you know, and thanks to people like Taupori and Katie Raisho too, you know, it's not just about doing what a kupuna have, but even testing the waters a little bit and evolving the art form a little bit. So, you know, like how we make ki'iakuas like to resemble the ones that our kupuna made, minus the feathers. We're going to evolve it to make freestanding ki'is made of ie. So have arms and legs and head and everything, except it's going to be made completely of ie. And of course, it has the teeth and the eyes and everything similar to like the ki'iakuas that I just showed you. You know, part of the other things too, that in the work that I've done, you know, I've also had the opportunity to learn from great mentors. People like Uncle Solomon Apio, who I did my first ki'i cup, or apu, if you will. And then I've also learned from Umikai. Umikai was my kumu who really showed me a lot of how to do meakaua. So here's a meakaua here. This is modeled after an artifact, except I'm using bull shark teeth instead of great white teeth. I wish I had great white teeth, but you know, they're very expensive and hard to get. But you know what's so nice? So it's very cool when you look at it. It's, you know, cool is the inspiration behind this meakaua, but adding in these little decorative mother of pearl inlay kind of gives a nice little hina touch there. So it's not just, you know, something that's meant to be a functional meakaua or weapon, but it also added beauty to it. So that's my little soft touch in there. And then even like the curves, when you're working on curves like that, that's really the hina coming into play. You know, soft curves, sensual curves. You know, and I always tell my students that, you know, curves are beautiful. So try not to avoid the curves and make only everything flat and straight. Get the curves in there, because the curves is what really, you know, brings and enhances the pieces that we work on. You know? There's another Leo Mano. So, you know, I have a lot to mahalo Kumulāʻau for his ike and sharing with us how to make these functional yet beautiful Mōkaulele. But, you know, it's not always about, like, you know, some people like get hung up like, I gotta always just make weapons. I love making weapons. But, you know, it's also, so that's where the ku comes in. But also like exercising our hina, you know. And so, you know, we're talking about the subject of today's matter is focusing on ku and hina and how indigenous art affects indigenous leadership. And so when we talk about ku and hina, we also can think about wearable things, you know, that also is an example of leadership. So we already said that Mōkaulele is a male symbol of ali'i in ancient times. And today, you know, if we make these, it's intended for a male to wear them. You know, some people ask, well, what about wahine? Why wahine can't wear these? And, you know, I'm not going to be the first to break out of that. Otherwise, I'm going to have a lot of emails later on saying, why did you allow wahine to wear Mōkauleles, you know, blah, 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 and whatever. But, you know, for me, if we were to honor people and say that this is a symbol of leadership to the highest order, if we want to do that. Just like, you know, how in the music world, na hoku hano hano. But if we had in our Pahiona world, that this would be like a symbol of, you know, kila kila, whatever you want to call it. If this is the po'okela, a symbol of po'okela, and we want to gift it to a wahine, if it's going to be used in that sense, to honor a wahine, that she is just as comparable. I mean, to me, Kane wahine doesn't matter. If you are deserving of a Mōkaulele because of the person that you are, you exemplify the leadership, that the kind of people that we would look up to and follow, then gifting it to a wahine is one thing. But I wouldn't ask the wahine to wear it just out of fear of retaliation, that we might get a lot of feedback from people. Oh, who are you to say wahine can wear Mōkaulele? Well, I'm not saying they can or cannot. I'm just saying that I'm not the one that's gonna do that. At least not yet. But anyway, so because wahine don't normally wear these, and even in today's time, following the example of our kupuna, you know, there are other things that wahine can wear that exemplify who our leaders are. Wearing palawa, like this. This is a leo pu'u. So the leo pu'u is really a whale-tooth symbol of leadership of Oahu chiefs, and even Kauai, and in some cases even Maui. They actually wore the leo pu'u, right, without the tongue. And then we also have the palawa alelo, where you have the tongue carved from palawa. And there are different kinds of palawa used today, but this is palawa, meaning that this is from the sperm whale tooth. A lot of times when I work with palawa today, you know, at first I was very afraid of working with palawa. And I think anybody who works with palawa at some point is always afraid of working with palawa, because it's such a valuable resource and so hard to come by and hard to acquire and hard to get them, that when you're working with it, you really want to know what you're doing before you cut into it, because you really can't afford to waste the material. And so, you know, I use other kinds of palawa today. I use palawa pala'o, which is also like walrus ivory or walrus tusk. I've used elepani, from tusk of the elepani, as well as palawa, sperm whale teeth. So this could be like a symbol that Kane and wahine could wear. And of course, if we gift these to our people, you know, it's just a treasure to have, to be gifted one of these, to have them in your possession. But, you know, I kind of evolved in thinking about, well, if I was a wahine, you know, and I would like to wear palawa, and I can't wear a Mōkaulele, what are other things that I can wear? And so initially I made these out of, made these kuila woho, these hair picks, originally for my, they actually belong to my wife. Belong to Haunani. I made them for her. But I have made these for others as well. But you know, like this two-pronged kui. You can't really see it closely, but this is made from elepani. So this is a very, I mean, it's not Palawa Hawaiʻi, but it is Palawa. And, you know, the elepani is a very, you know, is a very manaful animal. And so just very fortunate that we had something that was from the pre-ban days. So this is a peahi design. This one is our my kupe'e design. So it has the kupe'e, and I don't know if you can see the swirl there. Yeah. And, you know, then also using woods like uhi uhi. And of course, this kind of looks very cool-ish with the ihe, with the barb of the ihe laumeki barbs in there. This is a 4-prong. And then even, you know, making things with ko'a, like black coral. So, you know, these are things that wahine could use because, you know, I don't want to leave, you know, our wahine out in the cold. And part of doing these also kind of allowed me to practice my hina side in a sense, trying to create something that has nice curve lines, something that would accentuate the wahine's beauty. And so I made these things, but, you know, when not just using natural raw materials, but even evolving it and taking it to another level where we're using non-native materials such as corian. I found that corian is also a good material for using, for duplicating this kind of work. So these kui lauoho are made from corian. So again, the peahi design, it has a nice weight, which is kind of, it feels almost like you know, like Palawa. It has a kind of a look and a feel like Palawa, but actually it's countertop, yeah, corian countertops. And then, you know, even like my iiwi. This is a 3-prong iiwi hair pick that I made out of a purplish or kind of like a plum colored corian. It's kind of nice because it has a curve. I follow the curve line of the manu, and you know, when it comes out of your hair, it looks really nice. Like, oh, there's a bird in your hair. But anyway, yeah. So this is you know, this is talking about evolving the art. It's not just only always trying to make it out of Palawa, but finding other kinds of materials that are more readily available for us, so that we can still exercise our creativity. You know, who provides the creativity, the inspiration, but Hina also does the manifestation of it, the birthing of it. And it's so important that, you know, you do both, because you have to have the energy to want and the drive to want to do it, the motivation. But it's Hina that comes into play, that as it's forming, as it's taking shape, as you're getting close to the, you know, the fine sanding and the polishing, you know, you're giving birth to something that's new, that's going to be used. So it has a lot of your mana in it. And then the person who's going to be using it, you know, they're going to add their mana into it. Especially when you have like, you know, when you're wearing something like palawa and your, you know, your hair oils, your oils from your skin, over time, you know, the palawa goes from being a nice white color to almost like a lena color. It kind of changes color over time. It comes, you know, the patina turns sort of like a yellowish whitish color. Yeah? So these are things I feel that, you know, wahine in our lahui can be wearing these things as, you know, as leaders, if we wanted to gift them and make them for our leaders. But for me, it's more than just to recognize the people who are leaders, but to make them readily more available for the lahui, because these are really treasures. And eventually, you know, I would love to see every family have a niho palawa. You know, because every ohana is tied somewhere to some chiefly line. If we connect back to our canoes. So, you know, these are heirlooms I believe that our Hawaiian families need to have again in our possession, and pass them down to our keiki, to our mo'opuna, and so on and so on. You know, another thing that I've done as far as dabble, besides doing ie as well as carving palawa and bone, things like that, I've actually really got into carving la'au or wood carving. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't call myself a carver, because to call yourself a carver really is a big title. And I've said this many times that, you know, I'm a student carver. I look at myself as a student because I'm still learning. And my kumu is not a Hawaiian kumu, but he is a Hawaii-born Maori person. His name is Jared Pere. He's my ki'ila'au kumu. So he's my carving teacher. And thank goodness to COVID, you know, I've been able to really do a lot in carving over these last 7 months, learning from Jared Petty to do carving. And, you know, it kind of goes hand in hand with my real work in real life. I'm the Hawaiian arts teacher at the Kaiwa Kilomoku Hawaiian Cultural Arts Center at the Kamehameha Kapalama campus. And part of my work at Kaiwa Kilomoku is carving. So it wasn't something that I didn't jump in and say, I want to be a carver. Yeah, I got excited. No, I wasn't in that at all because I was already kind of had a full plate of doing other kinds of things. But eventually I kind of, the carving job kind of landed on my lap so I kind of say that carving finds you rather than you pursue carving. It will find you when you're ready for it. And as a result, I've carved some items for Aotearoa on behalf of Kamehameha Polynesian Voyaging Society and Mōkaulele as gifted as tongas or treasures to our Maori cousins. And, you know, that's how I got into carving. So I'm technically Ngāti Wahia or Mōkaulele tribe's carver. And so, you know, thanks to COVID, I did a lot of carving during this time. So, you know, one behind my back is a work in progress. So Haunani thought it would be a great idea to show Lono, even though it's Makahiki's around the corner, but you know, I'm gonna try to get Lono done as fast as I can. But you know, this came from a big piece of kamani, one solid piece of kamani log that was it was on the ground, and I found it at Pounders Beach by Lai'ie. And I've been eyeing it up for quite some time. I was driving by when I go to PCC to do my carving practice. I see it on the ground, I said, oh my gosh, there's a big kamani over there. So I went over there and sure enough, somebody already had the same idea. They already took a chainsaw to it and almost cut the log and took it away with that. I actually had my chainsaw on the side, fired it up, and I finished the job and I hauled this log out. But you know, this one exemplifies Queen Hina because again, there's a lot of hard work that goes involved when you're like rough shaping the image. That's where the ku comes in. Hina, again, is all about the subtleties, the attention to detail, the nice curved lines, the curve of the arch. You know, the nice straight lines are really cool, very deliberative, very deliberate, you know, very strong. Straight lines are very strong. Curves are much more fluid. So that's where I say that's where the Hina comes in. And again, knowing how much pressure to hit, how to hit. And, you know, over this time of COVID, I was able to produce 3 ki'is, and which I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for COVID. So, but I've been sharing with people too, is that we need to look at the silver lining of, you know, COVID has hampered our lifestyle in a lot of different areas of our life. But at the same time, you know, I have to look for the silver lining and find good hope in it that, you know, it was during this time that I was able to produce some good things. And, you know, so I mahalo for that opportunity, for that time that I had to do work on these kind of projects. But yeah, my job is to get Lono done in time for Makahiki in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully it will be done and then I'll be ready to move on to the next project. I mean, there's just never ending, projects never end. It's just the desire to continue and to hopefully that the work that I do inspires people, inspires me. And that's why I do the things that I do, because I just enjoy doing it. It's not, I don't really look at it as work. I look at it as going to school. You know, I'm an educator, so it's natural for me to be like a lifelong learner, always wanting to learn and do new things. But one of the other things I recently made was this ki'i wahine. And, you know, I have to mahalo all those that came before me that made one of these. And it was like those people plus the ones that, you know, that came out of Kauai High. But, you know, I have to mahalo people like, you know, Rocky Jensen, Sam Ka'ai, Lee Van Kiola Sakara, and others who have made a ki'i like this, you know, a ki'i wahine. Because they inspired me and gave me the inspiration. And not just that, but our artifacts also inspired me to want to make one of these, and I learned so much lessons just by doing this carving. And most people might not understand it, but part of, and I only found it only in the area of carving ki'i, that you're so pili to the work that you're doing, that because you're producing something that looks very human-like. You know, when you're making something that looks very human-like, it starts to take on a life of its own. From when it's just, from when it's just a log, to start it has a head, then it has arms and legs. It's really to taking on a form of a human. So, you know, you pour a lot of mana into it, and it really has a lot of mana. And when you add lawoho, when you add hair to it, you make eyes to it, you know, it becomes a very special image. It's not just a wooden image, but it's something that's very a part of you, very pili. And so, you know, I even tell Haunani once in a while, you know, I go in the garage at night and I have conversations with these ki'is. And sometimes my conversations are not spoken conversation. It's just really like a staring at the image and really just almost so focused on the ki'i that it shares with me how it wants to be carved. I get these little visions or flashes in my mind. Ah, that's the next step. That's how I'm gonna do it. It kind of sort of like reveals, almost like a vision, if you will. And so that's only happened to me when I'm carving these ki'is. When I do other pieces, like this kind of ki'i, I don't get that same kind of feeling, but I do have, you know, I do know that my kupuna are guiding us when we actually weave these things, because they're not just intended to be just like baskets, but they have special purpose. And so these ki'is do have special purpose, although its purpose is not the same that our kupuna did like 300 years ago. So it serves a different purpose in our lahui today. So, you know, when I think about ku, you know, ku inspires me to continue to do all these different kinds of things. And I still have, you know, a bucket list of things that I want to do, people that I want to learn from. And I'm hoping that, you know, those opportunities will come one day, opportunities to collaborate with other culture bearers, other practitioners, and do collaborative projects, because that's how we continue to grow. And, you know, it's not just about growing, but it's about uplifting, you know, raising our vibrations. And, you know, that's why, to me, you know, I'm not, although I can Ōlelo Hawaiʻi, and I'm not a hula practitioner per se, I do have like certain chants that I do as a means of helping to move my practice forward. So, you know, I do eulu, because eulu is very important, always growing. And ku and hina are the two forces, male, female, of growth. You need those two to cause growth to happen. So eulu is one of those things that we do, naoma kua, because we also share, and whenever I share with people the different kinds of hana of our kupuna, that, you know, everyone has a kupuna, an ancestral memory that they can connect to, that will help them in their work. If they have the desire, the i'ini to want to do it, that kupuna will show up and help them. So, you know, that's, naoma kua is important. And last but not least, you know, always asking for more knowledge. There is a saying, and I'm going to mess it up, I know it already, but, you know, for one who's given much, you know, it falls upon you to give back, to that extent. And so that is part of my kuleana, is to also to share everything that was taught to me, to pass it on and share it. It makes no sense to hoard this kind of ike, because we want this kind of this work to continue for the next generations, and so on and so on. So, you know, ultimately, aside from going into our lahui and teaching ulana'i, I would love to teach other types of things to our lahui, or for those who really want to learn. But I'm going to kind of leave it open now for some questions, if there are some questions. I know we're kind of getting down to like the 15-minute mark, so if there are any questions, are there any questions?
Kumulāʻau. Can you hear me? You know, I think you hit on a point that we can elaborate on when it comes to indigenous accountability. And you know, some people come into the arts because it's a craft, which when it's a craft, there is no accountability. It's you can do almost anything you want. But when we're bringing to life these old forms and innovating, giving it new function, even though the function might be new, um, there's still an accountability to the people that passed, you know, and they come to us through dreams and they'll tell us if we're on a right, you know, going on a right path or not. But also our community. Our community is so quick to you know, to keep things in order. And you can see this in hula. We keep, you know, as Umikai notes, that rank is rank. And, you know, and part of being growing indigenous leadership is having people recognize that rank is determined by a number of things. One of it is by service to the community. And as you say, you know, and it's not nothing you can buy. You can inherit the title of rank, but really the good ali'i were the ones that not just inherited the right to be ali'i, but also accomplished great goods for the well-being of the community. So I like that, that, you know, I know some people might say, well, you know, what is for the male should be for the female. But what I like about what you just said was that perhaps, but you're not going to be the person that's going to do it, or maybe not now, which leaves room for us to one, honor the tradition, and two, make room for possible evolutions, but not feel that as an artist you have to have all the answers, or you have to, you always have to speak in the politically correct or present politically correct views on indigenous, in this area, indigenous arts, because there is an accountability that some of those that don't identify with indigenous origins, they may not understand what that accountability is. And so it is an important feature. And in leadership, that's what we teach them. You can't just lead for yourself, your personal being, but really for the well-being of your community. And so I like that not everything politically correct. What is defined as politically correct today has a lot to do with us being associated with the United States. Those are we have a whole different system of balance. And so thank you for bringing that up, because sometimes we have to put that in check. We have to ask students, okay, are you thinking in the way of the Hawaiian, or are you thinking in the way of the colonized? Because sometimes we have to have the ability to work in both worlds.
Right.
But we don't want to confuse them, because we don't have to. We don't have to choose just one. We can choose whatever is going to work and advance the goal. But thank you for bringing that up. That really helps me with some of the work that we have, especially with our younger students. They just want to come in and what's good for that person is good for me. And, you know, and so sometimes we got to help them find the balance. But anyone else? Anything in the chat, or if, just unmute yourselves and go for it, guys.
Aloha, aloha kumulāʻau, Pomai, Brown.
Fine.
I was wondering, do you have like a time frame where you think you might start to papa on Mōkaulele?
We were looking originally at 2021, but we're really going to see how, as you can expect, that COVID has also affected our Maui cohort this year in 2020. But we were actually looking at starting 2021. Now, if there is a way that we can do both two cohorts in 2021, then that's what we're looking to do. And even my philosophy and how we do our classes has evolved over time. That we used to, we would provide a beginning basketry workshop, basically just to see if it's for you, because what we don't want is we say there are no prerequisites for the class, because, and then you come and then you struggle and then you don't want to come, and then there's, you know, we want to limit the class too. We can't have a super large cohort on Hawaii Island, but we are trying to see if we can manage 20 students. And all we ask is that, you know, that they're going to be diligent in doing the work. They want to do the work, because we don't want to force anybody to do this work. And that's going to allow you to do your best work. So if anything, what we can do, maybe we can, later on, we can get you have my email. You can get my email and you can give us your information and we can put you on the list for Hawaii Island.
Mahalo.
Hey, good to see you, Pomai.
You too, how are you?
Looking good, brother.
You too, man. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Anyone else?
And to take that back, you know, there already was a wahine in Hawaiian history that have dawned on the ahula and the mahiole. And, you know, we can say that's ka'ahumanu. And, you know, if ka'ahumanu was here today, I wouldn't go against her word of wearing the mahiole either. But, so anyway, she did set a precedent, and that is historically documented. So, anyway, yeah. Still open to those ideas.
You know, there is an interesting phrase that we have, and it's ho'okane or ho'owahine. And I kind of, it made sense to me when years ago we went to Awanuiarangi, Marae in Aotearoa. And this is a good thing to travel sometimes, because when you travel, you interface with the answers to the questions you have that's formed at home. Mm. And their story, the word is called Whakatane. Oh, the place is called Whakatane. Mm. Their village, their area is called Whakatane, which is in our language Ha'akane or to Ho'okane. And they got that name because the story goes that when they were migrating over the ocean and they, you know, the canoes, there are multiple canoes, they're spotting out the grounds that those Eevees would inhabit. This one group arrived where is now Whakatane, and what they did was they kind of moored the canoe, and the women stayed on the canoe, yeah. And again, the ku and the wahine, you know, action. So they stayed on the canoe with the children, and the men went to go and investigate, to go, you know, see what the land was like and if it was safe for them to bring the women, their families on. And at that point, some time had passed. The currents are a little bit extreme. They rose and they started to take the canoe. Mm. But the women, because of their hina role, could not touch the hoi to actually. So either they're going to just become victims to the situation or do something about it. And so one of the elder women started calling Whakatane, become men. And at that point, when they were able to, in a few words, change their whole psyche, they were able to touch the hoi, and touching that hoi allowed them to save the entire village. Otherwise, the village would have just been men. And then that's how the village got named. That story, that female is a huge hero. And you know, so I know that's something to consider also. And it's not just act like a man or act like a woman, you know, whakahine. It's a whole different psyche that comes with that shifting. But you know, in the world of hula, in some schools or some of the dances that we do, there's absolutely no gender. Gender does not play. It's a neutral ground. You just minus the gender. So, you know, to have that ability to neutralize gender or to switch genders depending on the function and the need of the community, I don't see that reflected in mainstream society. you know, not in the ways that are meaningful and respectful to how we think and believe. So, yeah, that story, Whakatane, is a great reminder to me. Anyone have questions? Come on.
Hey, Uncle Kanani.
Hi, Cecine, I love your work. And like you always try something different.
Mahalo.
They call us up. And I too go out and talk stories with all my kids. We communicate, they communicate with us, and they lead us to where we need to go. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with her, with Ka'ula, and even doing Lono. Lono I've had a lot of just quiet time with Lono in the garage and just focusing on what needs to be done, how it's going to be done. And then, yeah, like I said, I'm just staring at it. People are like, what are you doing? I'm saying communicating, talking to the key. And then I just see these visions unfold, like, oh, that's the next step. That's where I got to carve next. That's where I got to make the cut next, and so on and so on. And, you know, it's just being more open-minded to accept these gifts when the kupuna are sharing these with us, and not to be, you know, sometimes when we're so educated in the Western world, we kind of like flip off that switch and pay no attention to the voice inside our head, or, you know, even the whisper, or just even these visions that we have. But, you know, I'm learning to deal with them better, and accept that they're meant to really be more helpful than they are to hinder. So, yeah, mahalo to the kupuna for that.
Kumulāʻau. Well, thank you. Hi, Kanani.
Hey.
Kumulāʻau. So, you know, I know that you made it very clear that your process for sharing, yeah, includes anyone, you know, that includes not just Native Hawaiians, but others that may have that ability to contribute back to the lahui, always back to the lahui. Is there any other criteria that you look for when you screen people, you know, such as, what are they planning to do with it? Are they planning to learn this so that they can just sell it? Or is it going to be used in and Umikai talks about function, you know, and you talk about function, about, you know, is it going to just be on the wall, or is it just going to enter into a real function? What kind of things do you accept currently? Because we know that you might, you know, acceptance might evolve.
So we've even, we've had these conversations with our haumana, especially our cohort haumana, the ones that had made these ki'i akuas out of ie. You know, we talked, and even moving into the mahiole, teaching them mahiole, like, you know, asking the question, why do you want to make the mahiole? Is it just because you want to have the object in your possession? Is it because you just want to learn it? But, you know, I said beyond that, it has to be more than just that. Because if that's the case, then just buy one. And, you know, and as a practitioner and artist, I sometimes make for sale, because I, you know, the money helps supports my ohana, helps me buy things that I need to buy to continue the work that I do, and that's fine. If I say designate, I'm going to make a piece for sale, and that's what it's going to be, or, you know, sometimes, you know, I designate that the piece is going to have a purpose. It's going to be a keeper. It's not for sale. I already have a purpose in mind what it's for, and so even to have those conversations with our students, we've asked them that, you know, the point in us teaching you folks this Ike is not just for you folks to just sit on it and not to share it. The purpose is you're going to help us. We're building an army of weavers. You're going to help us produce this stuff and get it out into the hands of our lahui. And so the idea of even, you know, having our students make a mahiole and ultimately gift one to a person that they feel is deserving, worthy of having a mahiole produced from their hands is what we're trying to do. Again, we're trying to move away just from the pageantry stuff. It has to be, like I said, the mahiole should be more visible. And, you know, ultimately, I'd love to have all the kane on the mauna wear mahiole, you know. Again, but at the same time, they have to understand the mindset of why they're wearing the mahiole. It's not because to look down on other, like, you know, I'm a leader and you're not, or I'm better than you and that's why I have one and you don't. It's not, has nothing to do with that at all. It's really, like I say, I think a mahiole should be in every household. Every Hawaiian man should have one. So that when the call is needed and we need to come as a lahui, it is a symbol of who we are as Kanaka, as warrior people will stand up and peaceful protest. Yeah. You know, we're not going to get aggressive and get nuts with the police or the military because, you know, we've seen what has happened to our Native brothers and sisters when things like that happen. But really is to be, to bring back the purpose of the mahiole, to also, it's uniquely Hawaiian. When people see that, we know that it's Hawaiian. Is to reinvigorate and reinstill pride in our people, especially for the men that will wear them. And, you know, just a reminder that we have many warriors out there. Some of them are the quiet ones that work behind the scenes. That doesn't mean that doesn't denote them any less worthy of having mahiole. Like I said, you know, it's something that all of our people should have. And, you know, I can't make them all for everybody. So that's why we're going to have these cohorts or these year-long classes so that we can do one on every island, and then, you know, every island has a group of people that can produce for their communities, and that's what we want to do.
Mahalo. Kumulāʻau. We want to say thank you very much for, you know, just sharing the authenticity of your work and of you. And not that we have to agree with everything you say or disagree, but we do celebrate is the fact that we have someone in our community that's not just doing this work for self-gratification, but is beginning to, the vision and the mission is to create armies of these resources in the community, but also teaching, you know, and getting away from the pageantry. We want to say mahalo to the pageantry. Pageantry kept a lot of things alive in those very shadowy years, but now the light is on, and pageantry has kind of, you know, it's not mainstream and it's not our only need for entering into this world. For everybody else here, if you have more questions, do contact Kumulāʻau. I am a student. I was a student of his workshop, his weaving workshop, and it's a, you know, it's a great place to be in when you're sitting in community and you're learning together and you're working together. And you knowing that you're contributing a chink stone to the greater foundations of the lahui. And so mahalo to you and your family. Again, contact him directly. We have, you know, Mōkaulele. We have monthly, who's next? I don't know even who's next on this series. I should have looked. Gil, who's next on this series?
The next person is Keli'i.
Oh my Lord, Keli'i Rachel. You know, like teacher anybody kokopopo. I said Keli'i, but we could die today. Or, you know, maybe who's gonna teach? Who's gonna carry this on? So, you know, he has begun to teach. But again, it's not easy for many of us to just pick up the arts and promote. We have accountabilities. So to all of you, have a good evening. Think about this. Think about how what was said can really clarify your own journeys through your own arts. Again, the difference between craft and art is, as I know it today, is craft does not necessarily require accountability. The things that we do have accountability, and that is a beautiful thing. Mahalo anui loa to you, Kumulāʻau, and to your teachers and to your teachers' teachers. Okay, ahui ho no kako. Bye-bye.
Yo, aloha.